Hey, welcome back to the Big Ranch Show. Thank you for joining me. The picture you see is of Amir Locke. He was murdered by the Minneapolis Police Department just last week. I believe February 2nd was the day. In a 6:45 a.m. raid on his apartment that he was staying in. He was visiting a cousin overnight, and apparently they decided they would do a no-knock raid. We'll discuss no-knock raids later in the video. But let's first talk about what happened. Amir Locke is visiting his cousin, as I mentioned, wrapped up in a blanket on the couch in the front room. When the officers storm through the door and start screaming commands, screaming, the police, warrant, warrant. But Amir is sound asleep on the couch. Amir has no clue what is going on around him. From the start of the incident to the end of it, to the time that he was dead, 14 seconds. From the moment the officers entered the apartment, 9 seconds. Then it's about 6 or 7 seconds maybe that he has to respond when they announce themselves. At this point, Amir kind of rises up a little bit off the couch and kind of is in a hunched over position and is holding his firearm, which he was legally allowed to possess. He is not a felon. He is not a criminal of any kind. He is allowed to have a firearm, according to his Second Amendment rights. But this doesn't matter because Amir is black. So the moment the officers see a firearm, they kill him on the spot. They don't look to see if he's actually trying to aim at anybody. They just start shooting. Officer shot him 3 times. In the video, you can see, especially in the slowed down version that they give, you can see that Amir's finger isn't even on the trigger. It's going along the outside of the barrel, showing that he is not looking to kill anyone at that point in time. He's not looking to shoot his firearm at anyone. And if they had given some time, maybe they would have realized that he wasn't trying to kill anybody. He was just startled and happened to have the gun with him. It turns out with Amir visiting somebody, the safest place for him to have his firearm was with him. Because you don't want to leave your gun out and it get used for something, or someone steal it, or something bad to happen, right? I don't know if there were kids around or not, or what. I have no clue about the situation in the apartment before he was shot. But I do know that he kept his firearm with him at most times. He didn't aim at anyone, didn't reach to fire at anybody. You can watch the video. The video doesn't show him aiming the gun at anybody. The video doesn't show them announcing themselves immediately upon entering the apartment. It took them at least a second or two to start saying police, warrant. But 9 seconds. 9 seconds was all Amir had to gather his thoughts and be shot to death. And then the Minneapolis Police Department says that he's a suspect in a homicide investigation. They knew that was a lie the moment they said it. Amir is not listed in one iota of information about that warrant. He is not connected to that warrant in any way, shape, or form, according to the police after they were called out on it. They decided that they were going to lie about it, that they were going to cover up what they did wrong by shooting an innocent person simply for having a firearm, simply for having a firearm while black. Now, this has happened to white people. It doesn't happen at nearly the same rate. There was a guy in Arizona who answered the door of his home with a gun in his hand. 3 o'clock in the morning. Cops opened fire the moment they saw him. So, it does happen. But it's happening a lot more to black men than it is to white men. The fact is, this shouldn't be happening. It's enraging to hear that this is happening again. The Minneapolis Police Department needs to be disbanded. I've said it before and I'll say it again. They need to be totally disbanded. The entire organization, from top to bottom, needs to be wiped out. Sent on their merry way to other jobs. Because they obviously are incompetent, racist, or both. But something needs to be done. That police department is murdering people and murdering people. There was a guy, Mr. Castillo, if you remember that video. He was in a car with his girlfriend. They asked him to reach for his ID. He reached for his ID. He had already informed them that he was a legal concealed carry permit holder. That there was a weapon in the car. And they just opened fire on him because he reached for his ID. They killed George Floyd for supposedly passing a fake 20 that turned out not to be fake. You see the issue with lying there too? The Minneapolis Police Department does not care about the citizens of Minneapolis. In fact, they enjoy doing no-knock raids so much that they demanded the warrant be changed to a no-knock raid or no-knock warrant when St. Paul asked them for assistance. So Amir died because of incompetence, the fact that he was black, and happened to have the nerve, the audacity, to be using his Second Amendment rights and owning a firearm. So we got to make our mind up here. Do you have a Second Amendment right to carry firearms, or do you not? Because if we're just going to allow white people to have the right to carry firearms, then nobody should get to have firearms, not even white people. This should not be happening. We should not be killing people simply because they're in a home and they're not sure what the hell's going on. I hate to think that the best option is to start shooting the moment someone comes in your apartment. Because that doesn't seem like a good option either. But what are you supposed to do now? They can just storm the apartment you're in for no reason? And the more information that's coming out, the more and more that wasn't even a unit they should have been inspecting? If that comes out to be true, there needs to be a huge lawsuit. It needs to be a lawsuit anyway, but it needs to be even bigger if that comes out that they got the wrong apartment to begin with. I feel bad for Amir's family, his friends. I feel bad for the apartment manager who gave them the key to let them in the apartment. From what I've read, Amir was staying with a cousin. Would have had his firearm on him because he's a delivery driver for a food service delivery company like your Uber Eats or your Postmates, DoorDash. Something like that. And so he had a firearm for his protection. Happened to have it with him. As his right, as an American. But he was headed to Dallas in the upcoming week to go be with his mother. And start what he was trying to do is he's trying to start some kind of music career. And I remember being 22 years old and being bright-eyed and thinking there was a future. So I know that this guy must have been full of hope. What audacity, huh? To have hope for the future, to be using your Second Amendment rights, only to get gunned down by officers who didn't properly identify themselves, who chose to storm your door, kick the couch you were on just to startle you on purpose. Had some people say you should know the character of the people you're staying with. That if he had done that, he wouldn't be dead. But we don't know that for sure, do we? From what I've seen, he didn't know this guy was under any kind of investigation for anything in connection to a homicide. In fact, they raided 3 apartments that day in connection to this homicide investigation. Only this one was a no-knock raid because Minneapolis demanded it. Do you know the character of every single person that you hang out with, that you're around, every family member? I bet you don't. Now, I do my best to be around people that I don't think are going to get me shot. But you never know what's going on in somebody's head, what they've done that you don't know about. And then they lie, claiming that he was a suspect, like I said. Now let's talk about what led to the death of Amir Locke. No-knock raids. No-knock raids allow officers to storm your apartment, your home, your office, wherever you are at, without telling you they're there, with no knock at the door, and they don't have to identify themselves until they're in the apartment, which should take place the moment they open the door. In this instance, it took a few seconds after they entered the door. They were already partway through the hallway before they started hollering. But these no-knock raids don't give you time, if you're asleep, to know what's going on. They don't let you have any time to figure out what you're doing. Had a friend of mine tell me that the first thing shouldn't be to reach for a firearm. Well, in America, when someone storms your home or where you're staying, you have a right to protect yourself. And the officers need to understand that they have that is a threat that they are going to take when they do a no-knock raid. Because as I mentioned earlier in the video, you have to create time. Because if you create space, you create time. In a raid like this, you don't have to rush up on the person. That's not necessary. That's not safe for you. It's not safe for them. If you have space, then you see the fire, and you give yourself some time. You can see the firearm before it's a threat. But no knock raids. They are deadly. They are deadly for officers. They are deadly for people that they're trying to apprehend. They're deadly for obviously innocent people that have nothing to do with it. They need to be banned outright across the country. There needs to be a federal ban on no-knock raids. Period. I mean, the only time I could see that a no-knock raid be allowed to be carried out is if somebody is dying on the inside of the apartment or the home, or is at risk of dying. I think at that point that maybe you have probable cause to enter the area. But a raid that's just purposely no knock just to scare people, that's pointless, and it leads to unnecessary death. Over and over again, this happens. We need justice for Amir. We need justice for everybody who's been gunned down in no-knock raids in the middle of the night. Breonna Taylor, for example. It should have stopped with her. But no-knock raids need to stop. There's no reason for them. They serve no purpose. Whether or not you agree with me on where I stand on the Amir Locke shooting, I think you can agree with me here that no-knock raids need to end. Because there's no reason for them. You should at least have to notify people that you're there before you enter the apartment. I don't care if you have a key. I don't care if you have to use a battering ram. I don't care what you're doing or how you're entering the apartment or the home. You should have to announce yourself before you enter someone's domicile. Period. And let me end this video talking about the Minneapolis Police Department and their attempts to smear their murder victim. The fact that they would go out of their way to smear this man and claim that he was a suspect in a homicide investigation when they knew for a fact that he wasn't proves that they were trying to cover it up. That alone should be enough to disband that entire police department. But everybody across that city that was involved, the fact that the mayor said he was going to ban no-knock raids in his city, and then he didn't. To the interim police chief, who lied and said that Amir was a suspect when he wasn't, and she knew he wasn't. To any city council person in that city, they need to be all removed and replaced by new people. To the state itself, the state of Minnesota, who chose not to pass legislation banning no-knock raids after police had killed other people doing the same thing. And from what I was reading over the weekend, Minneapolis Police Department has a higher use of no-knock raids than almost any police department in the country of its size. Clearly, there is a problem in the state of Minnesota, and it needs to be addressed. I believe they need to take care of the Minneapolis Police Department. That's their job as the state of Minnesota. But it's also on the federal government. The federal government's going to have to step in and find a way to pass legislation to ban no-knock raids. Because I don't believe the President of the United States can just single-handedly do that. But all I know right now is Amir Locke should be breathing. He should be alive. He should be on a trip down to his mother in Dallas, Texas. That's where he is supposed to be right now. He should not be dead. His family should not be planning a funeral. But that's where we are. That's where we are in America. We're in a place where it doesn't make any freaking sense. This doesn't make any sense to me. I just don't understand it, and I never will. There's no way for me to understand what's going on here. It's absolutely disgusting what's going on. It's absolutely pathetic that we've let it get this bad. It's absolutely insane to me that we can't decide who's allowed to have a firearm and who's not. Someone shouldn't be just shot simply for having a firearm in their hand. They should have to direct it at an officer in a way that looks like they're going to shoot it. Cops need to be a little more brave. They need to realize that the person they're dealing with has just as much right to be alive as they do. That's why you need to give a little space to create some time. That way you can make better decisions. A gun advocacy group in Minnesota has come out in support of Amir Locke and his gun rights, saying that there was no reason for him to have been shot simply for owning a firearm. It is his God-given right by in our Constitution to hold a firearm. Whether or not I agree with the Second Amendment or not, it is the law of the land, and it's what we get to live with, right? You cannot just storm somebody's home or storm the apartment they're in and startle them and then start firing because they have their firearm. There should be some kind of reasoning. There should be some kind of rules in place on how you engage somebody when they have a firearm. If you storm their house and they happen to wake up with a firearm in their hand, you shouldn't get to shoot them for that. Because you're going to create a situation to where gun owners are going to feel threatened every time someone comes in their home. And that if you don't get rid of these no-knock raids, one of the next times that there's a no-knock raid, there's going to be more than just the person that you're coming to get dead. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see anyone killed. I don't want to see officers killed. I don't want to see innocent people killed. I don't want to see even people that are possibly guilty of crimes be murdered or killed for any reason. That's the reason we have a justice system in this country. As flawed as it is, it's not the officer's job to kill people. They don't get to be judge, jury, and executioner. That's not their job. Their job is to arrest the criminals, take them in so they can have their day in court. That's their job when it comes to doing this stuff. So, to the family and friends of Amir Locke, I am sorry. I am sorry that once again officers chose to take the life of an innocent person who did nothing wrong. I'm sorry that this continues to happen in city after city after city. I don't understand how somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse is allowed to freely roam around killing people with an AR-15. Meanwhile, somebody like Amir here wasn't even allowed to have a pistol. Officers didn't even consider stopping Kyle Rittenhouse as he walked around, with that AR in his hands. They didn't even ask questions. He at any moment could have shot the cops. I saw video and I saw still pictures of him just randomly holding the gun in the air. And he wasn't shot. Why? Why is Amir Locke dead? Why was Kyle Rittenhouse allowed to stay alive? Looks pretty clear to me. And it's sad. This has got to stop. Anyways, thank you for watching The Big Rant Show. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you down the road.